tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
I don't think it's a problem that's going to be going away anytime soon because we've been seeing it for prescription products for a while.
Navigating the cold and flu drug shortage and the worries from pharmacists as people look to other medications to fill the void.
As a call taker, for all of us, it is quite frustrating because we are here to help people.
From someone cutting in line at the car wash to a broken window wiper, BC's worst 911 calls of the year.
I think after 2 weeks, more people want to book the flight to China.
Plus, the easing of travel for Canadians going to China and what it means for businesses here.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Anita Bathe. The clock is ticking for airlines to reunite people with their lost luggage at YVR. And while we've been following this story closely over the last few weeks after winter weather caused chaos at the airport, tonight John Hernandez is bringing us the impact the bag fiasco has had on one man who just moved to BC from India.
It's been 16 days. I have very few hopes left.
Rush Nagpal's new life in Canada hit turbulence from the start. He touched down in Vancouver on December 19th, just as the winter storm hit.
These are the same clothes which I was wearing that day.
He was immigrating from India. All 3 of his checked bags were lost in transit.
The luggage is probably the most important thing that can help a new immigrant survive in a totally new country.
After repeat trips to YVR's luggage graveyard, he managed to track down 2 of his smaller bags, but the most important suitcase is still nowhere to be found.
They have my spectacles, they have all my winter clothing, they have my PC essentials, they have my keyboard, they have my mouse, they have all my electronic connectors to they have the USB-C hub, it has some of my medicines.
Not to mention souvenirs from home.
And when you're immigrating from a new country, you are not just carrying clothes, you're carrying memories you're carrying precious belongings, gifts from family, friends.
Replacing the essentials has been costly.
I'm struggling financially because it's really hard. There's only a limited expense. There's only a limited amount of money which I brought from my home country, and then it's when you are spending in a new country, the currency charges and the markup fees is really high.
The airport says the number of checked bags has dropped from about 1,500 to 1,000.
We can certainly see that the backlog is clearing out. For example, we did have an area with WestJet where they were using parts of our terminal to store and sort bags. They no longer need that space.
Those still waiting are reminded it's up to the airlines to reunite bags with owners.
It's not your responsibility to search for your baggage. It is the airline's responsibility to deliver your baggage to you.
I want to say that everybody should be aware of what are their rights.
Rights that include compensation if bags aren't found after 21 days, a deadline that's quickly approaching for many. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
And with China set to drop more COVID restrictions, it's going to mean more travel between places like China and Canada. That is expected to be good news for businesses here in BC. Lindsay Duncombe has more on the implications.
Traveling to China is about to get easier, and that should mean business for travel agent Aaron Zhang.
Because they want to go back to China, visit their family and parents, yeah.
Starting Sunday, Chinese nationals can return without the hassle and expense of hotel quarantine. A negative test will be enough. Another change, business visas will once again be processed. Tourist visas, not quite yet, but the message from the Chinese Consul General in Vancouver is clear.
We can ensure that everything is back in normal right now. Actually, in Beijing, in Shanghai, everything is back in normal, yeah.
A complication to that message, COVID infections are high. These images from a Shanghai hospital don't exactly look like a tourism ad. Because of the surge in cases, travelers returning to Canada will need a negative COVID test, a move China calls discriminatory and epidemiologists question.
This new policy, which has been instituted in Canada and the United States and elsewhere, probably will have very little effect on disease transmission.
People who do business in both Canada and China say returning to what was once normal will take time.
You know, just because they've removed the quarantine restrictions, I don't think that we're going to see an overnight increase. I think it'll take several months, but certainly this is a very positive sign.
Before the pandemic, there were more than 50 direct flights between Vancouver and China each week. Now there are fewer than 10, and seats cost thousands more than they used to.
And that's so expensive. The price is so expensive.
Aaron Jung says eventually more flights will be added. After missing his grandma's funeral and being separated from family, he wants to be on one of those planes soon. Lindsay Duncombe, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, hot on the heels of the children's pain medication shortage, there are concerns tonight that now adults are out of luck. As Susanna De Silva tells us, pharmacies across Canada say they are running very low on cold and flu medicine.
And the ones that are not available are the cough suppressants.
It's bad enough having a cold or flu, but now you may not get much relief from your pharmacy.
A lot of the products we're looking for are not available, they're on back order, or they just sell out really quickly.
Pharmacist Tina Shaffey says her team never knows what medications they'll get, and what they do isn't always the right fit.
Yeah, it's really tough because a lot of the products that are available are combination products that have a lot of different ingredients in them, and we typically don't want people to take extra medication.
And this store supply isn't that bad compared to even the big chain pharmacies all across the country.
It could be hundreds of products that you're trying to reorder daily with basically on a hope and a prayer that something's going to come to you.
The Ontario Pharmacists Association says demand has soared as COVID measures dropped and colds and flus increased.
I've heard estimates that, on a day-to-day basis now, pharmacy teams are spending, 20 to 25% of their time managing drug shortages.
It's a problem that has been growing for weeks, especially on the heels of a lack of children's medications. Today, Health Canada said drug sellers had not reported any shortages of adult cold and flu medication, but later a statement from the federal health minister said his office is closely monitoring the situation as it is evolving quickly, and they are in discussion with manufacturers here in Canada and abroad. In the meantime, some doctors have had to suggest home remedies for their patients.
People over the age of 1, we can use honey to treat a cough. For decongestion, there are things like saline sprays or nasal steroids, things that you talk about in conjunction with your physician.
And even better, she says, take extra precautions to not get sick at all. Susanna De Silva, CBC News, Vancouver.
A teenager has been identified as one of the 4 people killed in that deadly Christmas Eve bus crash near Merritt. 18-year-old Kathy Kim Lay was traveling home from visiting her friend in Kelowna when the EB's coach went off Highway 97C. The teen's death was confirmed to CBC News by her uncle, who says her parents were informed early Christmas morning. Police have not confirmed the name of any of those killed. CBC has confirmed another passenger was 41-year-old Karanjot Singh Sodhi, a father of 2 who came to Canada late last year. Well, the annual list of Nuisance 911 calls in BC is out, and it serves as a stark reminder about when you shouldn't call the emergency line. Nuisance calls are frivolous complaints that really don't warrant an emergency response. Some of the calls this year include complaining about children drawing with chalk at a playground, someone wasn't picking up after their dog, people were playing basketball in a public court at nighttime, and someone had a flat tire. The number one nuisance call: the nozzle wasn't working at the gas station.
As a call taker for all this, it is quite frustrating because we are here to help people. We're not here to just answer general questions or be an information line. It is an emergency line where we want to help people that are in situations where it could be life or death.
The agency says 2022 was its busiest year with more than 2 million calls coming in. ECOM hopes the list shows people when it is and isn't appropriate to call 911. A BC nurse is being investigated for allegedly trafficking prescription drugs to inmates at a maximum security prison. According to new court documents, the 50-year-old registered nurse was working at Kent Institution in Agassiz in late 2021 when the Correctional Service of Canada began investigating discrepancies in his handling of medication. The documents say he resigned from his position days after learning of the investigation. The nurse is not being named by the CBC as no charges have been laid. None of the allegations have been proven in court, and the nurse has yet to file a response. Meanwhile, Fraser Health is issuing an urgent warning to drug users. It says high levels of carfentanil have been found in a white chunky sample in Coquitlam. Carfentanil is a highly toxic drug that's 100 times stronger than fentanyl. It's used to tranquilize elephants and bears, and a single salt-sized grain can kill you. Fraser Health is urging drug users to not use alone and to get their drugs tested. In November, the BC Coroner Service said it expects more than 2,000 people to die from toxic drugs in the province for a second consecutive year. Well, the Greater Vancouver Zoo is being sued over a 2019 incident in which a child was allegedly attacked by black bears. A Vancouver man has launched the lawsuit against the Aldergrove-based zoo, alleging his daughter, who was 2 years old at the time, was mauled by a group of black bears after sticking her arm through an unguarded chain-link fence. It left her with a wrist fracture, partial finger amputation, and scarring. The lawsuit filed in BC Supreme Court claims the attack was a result of negligence by the zoo. None of the allegations have been proven in court, and a response to the lawsuit has not been filed. Well, new data from the Vancouver Fire Department is shedding light on the number of false fire alarms recorded last year. More than 500 calls happened at one downtown SRO, the majority of them caused by cigarette smoke. But as Michelle Gussoub reports, building's manager says there's little they can do.
Canada Hotel on Richard Street is one of the biggest SROs in the city. The Vancouver Fire Department said in a tweet it responded to 504 calls at this building in 2022 alone. Over 300 of those were false alarms triggered by people smoking cigarettes and drugs.
The fire truck has to come here time and time again. And things could be really happening where their assistance is needed, where they could be somewhere else, perhaps saving a life.
The fire department said it will be billing the SRO, which is run by Atira, for the false alarms. Atira has been paying those bills for the past 3 years, but says there's little they can do to stop the calls from happening.
And I don't think anybody wants to evict people for smoking in the rooms, because where do they go? You know, they live in a tent on Hastings Street. They go to a camp. They go to another building and smoke.
The Vancouver Fire Department said no one was available for an interview, saying only Vancouver and Fire Rescue Services is working with various stakeholders to ensure safety in SROs. And those safety concerns are very real. There have been several devastating fires in SROs in the past year, including the deadly fire at the Winters Hotel, which killed 2 people and left more than 100 residents displaced. This man, who didn't want to go on camera out of concern for his privacy, moved to Canada Hotel after narrowly surviving the Winters Hotel fire. Every false alarm triggers painful memories.
It becomes traumatizing. You start having nightmares. You hear the alarm and you're jumping up and start heaving. My lungs start. And when I start dreaming about it, I wake up. It's just like it happened again. It's just like it happened again.
Atira says it would consider downgrading the alarms from a Stage 1 to a Stage 2 fire system, allowing time for staff to inform the fire department when there's no real danger. But increasing the response time comes with its own risks.
We saw, for example, 2 fatalities in the Winters building in that fire, and can see how it can go wrong and become a tragedy really quickly.
Something residents and workers hope to avoid. Michelle Gussoub, CBC News, Vancouver.
Ridership on the West Coast Express trains has not bounced back. It's now at 43% of what it was before the pandemic. The transport operator says the service between Vancouver and Mission has been slow to recover because its ridership depends heavily on office workers in downtown Vancouver. Many of those people are still working from home. TransLink says overall ridership on all modes of transit across its network is at approximately 80% of what it was pre-pandemic. Well, tributes are pouring in for a Hong Kong music legend who called Vancouver home. Composer Joseph Koo, dubbed the godfather of canto pop, has died at the age of 92. And as Leanne Young reports, those who loved him and his music say his influence will live on.
A song capturing the spirit of Hong Kong, Below Lion Rock, one of composer Dominic Chung's favorites from his mentor. It's just one of thousands of pieces written by Joseph Koo. Chung was his assistant in the 1970s.
He taught him a lot of things. Without him, I cannot get into this profession.
Chung watched his boss's rise to fame. Koo was a hitmaker, writing songs for nearly every Hong Kong singer of note from the 70s into the 90s, scoring countless numbers of films and television shows.
I think everybody will remember him as the godfather of Chinese popular songs in Hong Kong.
Koo studied music on a scholarship in Boston at the famous Berklee College of Music and brought Western stylings to Cantonese music, creating a new genre. It was music that Alan Lau grew up listening to.
He was my biggest influence, and I'm sure this isn't one unit to loss to anyone who I think speaks Cantonese, or definitely any Hong Konger around the world.
He says Koo inspired him to move from Vancouver to Hong Kong to pursue music, and it all came full circle when he was asked to perform at Koo's sold-out tribute concert in 2015.
And so I played the very, very last note on piano in that final concert. I will always remember that. That was my little gift for him.
Koo was responsible for some of singer Annabelle Louis' success, writing 3 original songs for her. But her favorite of all of his, a tune about pride in being Chinese.
做個勇敢中國人，熱血決心抵抗敵人. This is one of my favorite.
Koo was recognized in Hong Kong with medals and honorary doctorates. But in a statement, his family said the spotlight wasn't his natural habitat, saying their father was shy, a man of few words but understated elegance, something Chung recalls fondly.
In our field, there are lots of gossipings, lots of rumors, and he never involved in such kind of things. Even when you criticize anybody in front of him, he will say, "Oh, really? Oh, how can it be?" And this is his only answer.
The two remained friends until the end, Chung and his mentor both immigrating to Vancouver. Joseph Koo was 92. Leanne Young, CBC News, Richmond.
Johanna is away tonight. Colette Kennedy joins us now with a look at a storm that's hitting further south of us in California. But we're talking about it because it's going to be impacting us. Say, Colette?
Thanks, Anita. Well, we just have to start off with a look at the satellite imagery of this monster storm, the next one moving in, of course, California, with parts of the areas that are flooded. The heavy snows in the High Sierra haven't had time to recover from the system a couple of days ago, and here comes the next one. I've actually taken this imagery from this afternoon, kind of at its peak, where you can see with this blend here, where I've got the visible satellite blended in, just that classic comma shape here. Now, is it going to have an impact? Well, it was a pretty nice day today. Some of that high, thin cloud pushing in along the lower mainland and the south coast. So yes, we will see the impacts of this, but in a different manner. Some stronger winds. There is a wind warning. This is for that northerly outflow through Howe Sound, 70 to 90 kilometers an hour tonight into tomorrow morning. And elsewhere, although it's not meeting wind criteria for warning, we are going to be seeing some stronger, gustier winds too. Now, in terms of the rainfall, coming in waves, so some of these showers that are coming in tonight into early tomorrow, lighter in nature, but later tomorrow, so Thursday night, think into Friday, more periods of rain becoming more organized, and we get into some heavier amounts of rainfall then as this pushes through. So some wet days to go through. One thing though, it is bringing that milder air in, so temperatures above seasonal, 5 tonight, tomorrow afternoon, 9 degrees with the rain intensifying again. That's later in the day. We'll take a look at those rainfall amounts coming up.
Thanks, Colette. Work crews around Metro Vancouver have been inundated with potholes after the sub-zero temperatures last month. In Surrey, city officials say the past 2 winters have been particularly challenging because when the temperatures rose so quickly after the freezing weather, the roads caved in. Teams have had to work around the clock to repair up to 6,000 potholes. But I want to go a little deeper now into how potholes actually form. So potholes form when water seeps onto the road and collects underneath. When it freezes, it expands and pushes up the road's surface. Now, as cars drive over the surface, more cracks form. Eventually, the sun ends up returning and it thaws everything out, including the water trapped below the road's surface. That all causes empty pockets to be formed that eventually the road collapses under the weight of the traffic. And that leaves behind a pothole, as you can see. Okay, today Canada is celebrating its first National Ribbon Skirt Day. It all started after an Indigenous student in Saskatchewan named Isabella Kulak wore a ribbon skirt to a formal day in 2020. She was told by school staff that it was not considered formal wear, igniting a national conversation. CBC Vancouver spoke with Jolene Mitten today, who is a local Indigenous fashion entrepreneur, to explain the meaning of the ribbon skirt.
Hi, my name is Jolene Mitten. I am Cree from the Sawridge Nation. I am the founder of Vancouver Indigenous Fashion Week, and I'm a community support worker in East Van. For me, Ribbon Skirt Day means like to, celebrate our resilience, the beauty of our culture, and dressing for the next generation. I made this skirt in 2022. It represents the medicine wheel, the 4 directions, balance. It's definitely very urban and contemporary, which is something I like. I'm an urban Indigenous person. Growing up in East Van, it kind of felt like a little bit of a war zone sometimes when we were younger. There is a bit of teachings when it comes in involved with ribbon skirts, like colors mean things, and each nation has their own teachings. I was taught by Roxanne Tatus from Saskatchewan, and she said that anyone can wear a ribbon skirt. I would say don't take up too much space though, like if you are a non-Indigenous person, and if you're working in Indigenous community and you're going to ceremony, I would say that that's okay, but I wouldn't just, wear a ribbon skirt just to wear it. I would just definitely make sure that you're working within community and you're a good ally.
He's lighting up the hockey world, and he got a start in North Vancouver. We speak to the former coach of hockey phenom Connor Bedard next. Thanks for watching our commercial-free live stream tonight. A PEI dancer was crushed when the COVID-19 pandemic spoiled her opportunity to attend a prestigious dance school in Ontario 2 years ago. Once the provincial borders opened up, though, she auditioned again and she won a spot. She now hopes to maximize her second chance.
Whenever I step on stage, it just feels like my heart is like having fireworks. Like I'm in the zone, and it's just like adrenaline. It's just so awesome. I just love dancing so much. Back when I was like 7, my best friend at the time was like, we don't spend enough time at school together. You should dance, and then you can dance with me. So I was like, sure, you know what, Mom, sign me up for dance. And that kind of just snowballed into now. So she always jokes that if I become a professional dancer, she takes credit for it. So. Like a month ago, I auditioned for Quinte Ballet School, and I got in, and I also got in for the full year. So for the summer program I'd be going to, it's about 4 weeks, and I would go and I would do ballet and jazz and lyrical and modern, flamenco, hip hop. So yeah, it would I'd live in the dorms in Ontario and just dance all day and have fun. I usually do jazz, acro, lyrical, contemporary. I like acro. Acro is probably my favorite. I just like it. It's fun to bend around and stuff. Acro, so it's acrobatics. So it's gymnastics and dance kind of mixed together. So it's upside down stuff and flips and tumbling, and then dancing and turns and jumps. I know I don't want dance to be my main career, but I definitely want to continue it when I'm older, even just as a side thing or just teaching, because dance is just such a big part of my life. And I just love dancing so much.
Canada's junior hockey team is inching extremely close to the gold medal match. The team is currently leading against the U.S. 6-2 in the third period. There's just about a minute left.
He's it back across, wait till he shoots, that's blocked, Campbell the chance, scores! It's 5-2 Canada!
Cheers erupted in Halifax as Brent Clark sent one top shelf. The Canadians dug a 2-goal hole early on, but answered with 4 straight in front of a spirited crowd in Halifax. 17-year-old North Vancouver native Connor Bedard added another goal to his record-setting turn at the Hockey Championships. The other semifinal saw Czech Republic take down Sweden 2-1 in overtime. Canada's only loss in the tournament came against the Czech side. All right, we're about 20 seconds away from that game actually being over. So by the time this next interview is done, it should have sent Canada into the gold medal match. Superstar Connor Bedard got his start here in BC, as I just told you, and he amazed his coaches when he played for the West Vancouver Warriors. Earlier today, I spoke with his former coach, Steve Marr. Steve, Connor Bedard's performance this tournament has been the talk of the town. What are you noticing in the way he's been able to lead the team?
I'm not noticing anything surprising. I think I get a lot of questions from anybody that recognizes that I have an association to him. Are you proud, this and that? And it's not even about pride anymore, because it's, any coach who's had an extended period of time to be around Connor and see what he does on a daily basis, not just on a highlight reel, you come to expect this. I'm just happy for him. He deserves every bit of this moment he's having this week. He's had to battle the naysayers every year since he was probably 10 years old. There's always the group of people that want to see him fail. And, at this point and this week, it's just been truly, I'm just so happy for him, because I've seen how hard he works. I've seen his drive. I've seen how bad he wants it. I've seen how much he loves to win. And for him to just get to execute on literally the biggest stage, I couldn't be happier for him.
Is there any one thing that you can pinpoint looking back, because you've known him for a number of years, that sort of showed you that he was going to be a star?
Yeah, I think what I've learned in being a player myself, being around some great players, and just being around, having so much life experience, I've come to learn that, people won't aim at what they want because they're afraid. They're afraid because once they specify what they want, they then define their conditions for failure. And the biggest thing I noticed about Connor is he is absolutely fearless. And there's been a lot of other players that have had similar skill sets to Connor over the years that just have never been able to raise to the occasion or whatever. And I'm not necessarily just speaking about World Juniors, just in junior or in the pros, but it's terrifying to know if I'm about to break a record that Eric Lindros has, or that Wayne Gretzky has, or names like that. And it scares really talented players away, because now, it defines their conditions for failure. But he is absolutely fearless. And he, I've done some interviews where I've compared him a little bit to Michael Jordan after I watched The Last Dance. And it's like, wow, he's really on that level of competitiveness. It's what he does with his talent at the level of competitiveness he does it with is what just absolutely separates him from everybody else.
Well, with praise like that, no doubt everyone's going to be watching to see what he's going to do next. I do want to quickly here talk about the Hockey Canada allegations. Does all this attention around Connor and Team Canada allow Hockey Canada to sort of slide under the radar? Because, there are allegations facing junior hockey players specifically.
Oh, that's a tough question. I mean, I think in the short-term moment, I think what Connor's doing and what Canada's been able to do so far at this tournament has I'm sure, shifted the focus off of that. Having said that, I think Hockey Canada knows that they have to be accountable to everything that's happened, and it's not just a quick fix that some tournament or some player is going to change the image for the organization. And you know, I certainly hope Hockey Canada recognizes that. I think as a culture in Canada, and just talking to people over the course of this week, just my friends or friends of friends, like, people are talking about it. So I don't think it's been swept under the rug, and it's great that, you know, we can get away from it for a bit. I don't think that means we've forgot the issue at hand. You know, that's the special thing about this tournament, is it just has a tendency to bring Canadians forward and have us an opportunity to just forget about everything going on in our outside lives. But I certainly expect you know, these allegations to be addressed, and Hockey Canada to continue its path towards bettering itself as an organization. And despite what happens with this tournament, or with what Connor ends up finishing with.
Steve Marr is Connor Bedard's former coach on the West Vancouver Warriors. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
I appreciate you guys having me on. Thank you.
And that interview was from earlier today. But the Canada-US game is officially over. Canada is heading to the gold medal game. That is happening tomorrow at 3:30 our time. They will be playing the Czech Republic. Bound to be a super exciting game. A bitter political battle in the U.S. over the Speaker of the House, and a divided Republican Party is duking it out. What happens next is coming up.
About 500 people spent the night at YVR. Some are still sleeping, and more are being told they can expect the airport to be home for a few more nights. This choir from South Africa has been here since Sunday, and they can't get out until the 26th.
Our whole trip is ruined. We have been buying food every morning, every afternoon, every night.
Other passengers were supposed to be in Toronto now. They're still here.
We're on our way back from Hawaii. Our flight was canceled, so we were stuck there. We've been in lines. When I got in line first, I was pregnant. My kids are now 18 and 21.
Not everyone was waiting in the terminal. We spoke to one Air Canada passenger who says she's been stuck inside the airplane for half a day.
We have no food, no water. They've run out of cups now, so we have nothing. And so we're going to, even when we do get going to Toronto, we'll have no food. And we've already been here almost 12 hours sitting on this plane.
They arrive like pilgrims with the dawn, ready to worship in rare bird heaven.
No sign of the bird yet?
From Toronto and Los Angeles and Colorado they've come, drawn to the home of an astonished Noel O'Brien.
When we first looked out, there was about a dozen people. The second time we looked out, there was a couple of dozen people.
It is the hunting instinct without the kill, the goal to expand the life list, birds they've seen in their lifetime.
This is my second live bird for the year. What was your first? Crescent-chested warbler. Oh, neat.
Where'd you come from?
Baker City, Oregon.
Why?
To see a bird.
Then, suddenly...
That's your bird. That's it, right up there in the back. Look, here he comes into the hollies. He's right in the holly bush. Right in the middle of the hollies now.
The dusky thrush.
That's one of the duskiest looking thrushes I've ever seen.
It's really very similar to a robin.
Its color is gorgeous.
It breeds in Siberia, winters in Japan, where it is just a common ground bird.
I think he ate a berry.
But it has never been spotted south of Alaska. It probably got blown off course.
Just ate a berry. Wow, look at that.
Now it's in Langley, duking it out with robins, protecting its feeding ground.
The person who found this bird is going to be an incredible celebrity. People, who know him 20 years from now are going to be, remember that day you found the dusky thrush.
That man, John Ireland, was doing the Christmas bird count when he spotted something out of place in a residential holly bush. He's modest.
Just pure luck, really. That's it. That's it.
But there is reason to fear that such incompetent migrators may become more common.
We're modifying their habitat through habitat destruction and urbanization, pollution, global warming. I think we're going to see a lot more of this.
There he goes. He's back into the cedars.
Was it worth it?
It just enriches the soul when you put your binoculars on that bird and you've got one more bird.
Praise the Lord that I've had a look at it.
This lost bird is unlikely to ever get home. We'll never know. and it will never know that it made birders' hearts soar the day they saw the dusky thrush. Eve Savory, CBC News, Langley, BC.
To the U.S. now, where the Republican Party's internal divisions are on full display as the vote to pick a U.S. House Speaker has become political theater. Today, vote after vote to elect a Speaker to get on with government business failed. As Paul Hunter reports, tonight they will go to backroom negotiations until tomorrow.
Republican Representative Kevin McCarthy, for the second straight day, smack in the middle of a kind of civil war within his own party.
Madam Clerk, I rise to nominate the gentleman from California, Mr. Kevin McCarthy, for Speaker of the House.
Nominated multiple times again for the powerful Speaker of the House position on Capitol Hill, second in line to the presidency. Nominated, but
Donald's.
Each time, again, failing to win enough support from fellow Republicans.
Donald's.
Setting off yet more heated debate between the multiple votes, the tiny faction opposing McCarthy seeking a way forward, the McCarthy crowd trying to stay alive in a circumstance not seen on Capitol Hill in a century.
McCarthy.
It made for great TV, but in the eyes of Democrats, great political fodder. More than a few making note this week of the spectacle of the Republican Party imploding. The U.S. president underlining,
it's embarrassing for the country. I mean, literally, I'm not making a part of this. The reality is that, to be able to have a Congress that can't function is just embarrassing.
It's left even conservatives gobsmacked. Say some, Republicans have done themselves great harm.
You will have a fractured party. You will have a party with a deep division. There will be very bad faith and bad feelings for a very long time. There will be people who remain angry about this for a political generation.
That's Paul Hunter reporting tonight. Okay, to Russia now. Russia has a new explanation tonight for a deadly New Year's Eve rocket attack by Ukrainian forces. The military says its own soldiers are to blame for the deaths of 89 troops. Briar Stewart shows us the rare admission about what went wrong.
Inside this room, the frozen, mostly unidentified remains of Russian soldiers. The Russian army removed all insignia and documents from the body, says this Ukrainian soldier. He believes it's because Russia is trying to hide the scale of its military deaths. Through its nearly 11-month-long assault on Ukraine, the Russian government has said very little about its battlefield losses, which is why an admission that 89 soldiers were killed in a New Year's strike in the Donetsk region is a rarity, even though the true toll could be much higher. Military officials now lay some of the blame on the soldiers themselves, saying they had been using their cell phones, which had been banned. This factor allowed the enemy to track and determine the coordinates of the soldiers' location for a missile strike, he said. There are unconfirmed reports that Russia had been storing ammunition at the same site where the soldiers were living. In Russia, there are solemn ceremonies to honor the dead, but little public outrage. The only real criticism has come online. The tragedy in Makivka is a crime, and no, not a Ukrainian one, said one military commentator. No one is assuming the responsibility for the needless deaths, said another. Russia's defense ministry says it will investigate what happened and hold officials responsible. It's an admission of the problems plaguing Russia's military. While it says only 6,000 of its troops have been killed in Ukraine since the war began, Western officials believe tens of thousands have died.
I think it's becoming more and more difficult to maintain this facade that everything is under control. And I think this is probably just one more indication of the fact that the whole narrative is fragmenting and it's under pressure.
As usual, President Putin is trying to distance himself from any talk of defeat. As he helped launch a frigate with a new hypersonic missile, there was no discussion about what happened in Makivka or anywhere else along the front line. where Russian soldiers are fighting and dying. Briar Stewart, CBC News, London.
She was hooked on drugs, doing everything she could to feed that addiction. How a prison sentence turned one woman's life around. Next. People in Prince George can now catch the e-bus to Kamloops. This comes nearly 4 years after Greyhound canceled all of its bus routes. Previously, buses run by Adventure Charters handled the route, but they discontinued service last month. The first e-bus arrives in downtown Prince George near the Terry Fox statue at 8:30 p.m. You can travel from Kamloops to Prince George on Sundays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Buses leave Prince George to Kamloops on Mondays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. Well, millions of Californians are stocked up and hunkered down tonight. The state is facing its third major storm since Boxing Day. As Chris Reyes explains, the wind and the rain will be bad, but it's the aftermath that may be the real worry.
This is just the beginning, and that's what's concerning all of California. The strong storm system is moving through the entire state with rain and strong winds already in the Bay Area.
We expect floods, we expect high winds, we expect trees to be falling and electricity to be lost.
San Francisco residents are worried after last weekend's heavy rains flooded homes and roads, causing widespread damage to the Bay Area.
Generally just trying to cover as much as we can with sandbags. It's just all we can do. The water went straight into our building the other day, so we're hoping to prevent that this time around.
We're very worried about it. We just spent all day putting sandbags in front of the garage at every entering point.
Just north of San Francisco and Sacramento, downed trees damaged power lines, leaving residents in the dark. The strong storm system hitting California is expected to last overnight, at least, moving south and hitting other populated areas, including Los Angeles.
A lot of people will be sleeping when the heaviest rain is expected to move through. So have a way to receive alerts and any evacuation orders and have a plan of where you might need to evacuate.
California's governor has already declared a state of emergency, with several areas already under evacuation orders.
It's definitely going to be the strongest series of storms that we've seen so far this winter season.
The rain isn't expected to clear until Friday and Saturday, leaving the entire state on edge about the life-threatening damage it may bring. Chris Reyes, CBC News, New York.
And Colette Kennedy joins us now, tracking that storm and how it will impact us. Colette, what's the latest?
Thanks, Anita. Well, again, just having a look at this very strong storm system. At one point, that central pressure of this area of low pressure under 960 millibars. So very intense, the very strong wind field here, as you see those closely packed isobars. So that having a major impact as it's moving in and affecting same areas that were affected around the Bay Area with the heavy rains, flooding, certainly problem with this one, just like the last, but the ground is saturated, nowhere for this to go, and then snow, heavy snow into the high sea area again. But as this continues to rotate through, we see it becoming more of a trough, and that's the impact it has more across Vancouver Island and pushing towards the mainland. So it kind of comes in waves in terms of what we'll see then. So this is lighter stuff tonight into portions of tomorrow, but later in the day, Thursday, and think Thursday night and Friday, that's when it gets a bit more organized and we get into more of these periods of rainfall. So looking at the rainfall totals, at first, generally this will be light, but then when that heavier, more organized system gets in or push comes through, that's when we could see locally on the Outer Banks of Vancouver Island some areas 50 to even up to 100 millimeters. For the city, I'd say more in that 10 to 20 millimeter range, a bit more towards West Vancouver. The other thing that does happen though with this system moving in, hey, we call it the Pineapple Express. I mean, this is tropical, it's warmer air that's pushing in. So our temperature trends over the next few days, it's even possible that tomorrow Vancouver could see double digits, but I'm taking that into Victoria and putting us very, very close with the high single digits. And then we've also got to contend with the winds. Earlier in the show, I was showing you the warning for Howe Sound, but still there's other areas where we're going to be finding those winds pretty gusty, exceeding 50 kilometers an hour along the Sunshine Coast. Certainly anywhere closer to the waters, you're going to find those stronger winds and around the island. So just looking ahead then, what can we expect? Well, periods of rain over the next several days, but more intense Thursday night into Friday, a bit of a break, still some showers possible Saturday and into Sunday, and then Monday, another wave pushes through. But through much of the period, you could see, Anita, staying on the mild side of things.
No kidding. Thanks, Colette. To a story now about a woman who spent years struggling with an addiction to crack cocaine. Alicia Gordon says it cost her everything, her job, her family, even her freedom. She was able to get treatment while in a corrections facility. Now she's dedicated her life to helping others and is sharing her story to inspire hope.
This neighborhood was the first place that I used cocaine. And it was also the last place that I used cocaine. I found myself coming full circle here. I go by it all the time, and it was Unit 4. Like, it's so vivid to me. You know, I remember the cocaine being put into lines on the table, and I remember what that living room looked like. It's like a marker in time for me. I struggled immediately with my addiction. It was within probably a couple of months. I was struggling to pay my bills. I was struggling to get to work. I was struggling in all aspects of my life because everything I had, I was into chasing my drug. The weight of my addiction brought me so much shame. I was self-sabotaging. It cost me everything. It cost me my freedom. It cost me my children. It cost me my career. So that shame just fueled my addiction even more because I didn't see a way out for myself. I chose to flee. I ran to Toronto and I thought that I could escape my problems by relocating. It was within a week that I was working in the adult entertainment industry, and I was using the money that I had gotten from dancing to fuel my addiction. I literally was prostituting. I was being human trafficked. I was around gangs and I was doing crime, and it was all to fuel my addiction. Nothing was off limits, nothing was sacred. I ended up pleading guilty to numerous charges and serving a sentence. It hit me deep, and I cried lots behind bars. It was tough. It was tough. The social workers and the counselors that I interacted with at the jails, you know, they made me realize that my life didn't have to end behind bars, that there was another way. Recovery for me was never a linear process. It's extremely easy for me to make the wrong decision and go and pick up. I can get drugs anywhere, anytime, any place in this city. Some of the struggles that I faced and the stigma that I faced impacted me significantly because you don't want to try. When you know you're going to be told no, when you're going to be looked down on, when people are going to judge you. I've had people call me names and, you know, and only see me for my addiction and the crimes I've committed. And there's so much more to me. And just like there's so much more to each individual who is struggling with substance abuse. You wouldn't pick on somebody who had cancer. You know, addiction is a disease. Being honest, with myself about where I've been, empowers me to continue to not go back there. When I try to deny my past, try to deny the severity of it, those secrets keep me sick. If I go and apply for a job and they don't know that I was an addict, I have to constantly worry that they're gonna find out. So for me, I have to live my life in a way where I just put all my cards on the table and people need to accept me for who and what I am. As of today, I work at the Elizabeth Fry Society of Northwestern Ontario as a systems navigator. So we support vulnerable women and criminalized women in the community and gender diverse populations. I love my work. I get up every day and I enjoy going to my job. It's one of the places that I've really been able to excel because I'm able to help people that I know. We're giving people at my job an opportunity to see that there is compassion and understanding for individuals. It doesn't matter how extensive their addiction is, they can always come to us and get help and support. My hopes are that today, by sitting down and speaking about my addiction, is that other people who are struggling with substance use will know that there is hope for themselves. Anybody can come back from addiction. Sometimes the only thing lacking for people is the opportunity.
Frustration and heartbreak in Montreal as outdoor ice rinks dwindle. Find out why after the break.
You can hear there's a bit of a wobble in this note. That's kind of how you can tell that a note is off kilter a little bit. Like this one, it's got like a wah 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 wah. The thing is, when you hit notes that don't quite sound right, it kind of breaks the immersive feel of piano music, and so you're playing and it sounds really nice. You kind of enter a trance, and then all of a sudden you get this off-sounding note. It's as if, you know, you're trying to read at the library and then somebody's phone goes off. I'm an engineer, and I've recently picked up the trade of piano tuning and repair. It started that one day my friends gave me a piano, and then I didn't know how to get it tuned, and so I started looking up how to do it myself. And then after being told by a couple pianist friends that I shouldn't do that, I hired a piano tuner to come in and do it. He was telling me that there are not many people doing it anymore and that it's a bit of a dying art. So I restarted doing research on it and then found my mentor Klaus here.
I always had hoped I could share my knowledge and share it, and there was nobody. And then suddenly I get a phone call from a young man. He was just very honest, straightforward. I like to learn how to tune a piano. I'm starting my 82nd year now. Piano business, in my opinion, is dead.
Acoustic piano sales have been going down over the years. They've been slowly going down as people take electric instruments, which are sounding better and better.
You have 88 keys here, and you can create with a touch of a finger 25 different nuances with each note. You cannot do this with any electronic.
I would like to learn as much as I can from Klaus, since you know, he's been willing to show me everything, and I've been really grateful for it.
I think we make a very good team.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox. Enjoy groundbreaking contemporary works of theatre, dance, music, and multimedia at the annual Push International Performing Arts Festival, January 19th to February 5th. And never miss a special programming series, event, or contest. Subscribe to CBC Vancouver's e-newsletter at cbc.ca/Vancouver inbox and keep connected with us.
It's a quintessential Canadian image and experience, skating on an outdoor rink. Climate change is no friend of tradition, and at a certain point, warmer winters mean fewer days on the ice. Montreal is one place already feeling the heat. Kobina Aduro reports.
It's been a busy couple of weeks at this refrigerated rink in downtown Montreal. That's because it's one of the only rinks operational, and that is drawing people in from outside the city.
There's no outdoor rinks in Laval where I am, so I had to drive all the way here, 30-minute drive, just to skate.
Some as far as Repentigny.
I'm kind of upset because it's like really far, but I don't mind because I'm with my friends, so it's fine.
Across Montreal, the poor weather conditions mean most rinks have been reduced to mud or puddles.
When you have young kids, if you're an immigrant and you just want to learn to skate to become part of Canadian society, outdoor rinks are really a great stepping stone.
Jonathan Brunn created the website Patiner Montreal to inform people what rinks are open as well as their conditions.
But even there's a limit. Most of the refrigerated rinks are actually still closed because it's been just so warm in the last week.
The fate of Montreal's ice rinks inspired Mitchell Decow when writing his graduate thesis on the effects of climate change. He says CO2 emissions are to blame.
Right now we emit about 40 billion tons a year globally. So until we stabilize temperature by bringing our CO2 emissions to zero, the ice skating season will continue to decline every year.
The City of Montreal says that outdoor rinks are a priority, and that's why it's investing more in refrigerated ones like this one at Esplanade Tranquille, which opened up this winter.
Even at the amount of global warming that we've already observed, we're still going to have skating days this season, but will we have something like 20 skating days compared to something like 40, which we've seen in the past couple of years as the average? Who knows?
Something people at Esplanade Tranquille want so they don't have to travel into the city just to skate outdoors. Cubino Duro, CBC News, Montreal.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I know skating is a huge part in so many parts of Canada, a huge thing. For me, growing up in BC's Lower Mainland, I've had to resort to the indoor arena-style rinks for the most part. I gotta say, my lack of exposure to rinks is showing up in my skating skills. Thanks so much for watching CBC Vancouver News tonight. We'll see you tomorrow.